Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to the live stream to react to the 2025-26 fixture results. I almost slipped up a little bit straight away there, but gonna wait like 10-15 seconds to get a few people in here, and then I'm going to start getting into things straight away. This isn't going to be a really long stream. The plan is basically to just go through each month by month. Maybe slide in a few comments at the end of it when I get to the end of each month, say what I think. Probably 20-30 minute live stream. Can't see it being much longer than that, to be honest, because I am melting in this sun. So I want to be honest with you, get outside of this bedroom and go outside as soon as possible. So I don't want to be sitting here for an hour. So yeah, that's the prerequisites. But let's get straight into things. August the 18th, our first game of the season. Would have been nice for it to be at Bramley-Moore, but it is away at Leeds United, newly promoted side. Haven't really seen much in terms of transfer news when it comes to Leeds, besides when they got linked to Beto. And yeah, I think it's going to be it's like a middle of the road start to the season, because I think Leeds will be good at Ellen Road this season. To be honest with you, I'm probably on the train again that I still think all three promoted teams might get relegated again this season. So it's one of those things where I'm not too sure what to think about the game. I think it's one of those where we'll have to see what goes on after the transfer window. But looking at it right now, I think it's a decent start to the season. I don't think it's the easiest game we could have had. Of course, that would have been at home. New atmosphere. I think the atmosphere at the new stadium is going to be fantastic this season. But going into it, I think it's hard to gauge what's going to happen in these games, because at the end of the day, it's one of those things where, you know, we don't really know who we're going to sign. We don't know who Leeds are going to sign. Any team we play are going to sign. How things are going to change in the next 2 months or so before the season starts. It's really interesting. I have some optimism for us in the transfer window. I'm not going to go through all 38 games and see if I think we're going to win, draw, lose, win, draw, and calculate the points total. I'm just going to go through each game and just basically say if I think it's winnable or not. By the way things are looking right now, Leeds United, definitely winnable. Next, on the 23rd of August, we have our first home game of the season against Brighton, which is nice. I think it's a very winnable game. I think Brighton are a decent side, but a side we've tended to get good results over the last few years. And I think it's one where it's much better than what it could have been for our first home game of the season. We want a game where we can win, where not so much make a statement, but show that this club's on the up. And, you know, Brighton are a team who are, you know, constantly around the mid-table, top half, sometimes flirting with the European spots, especially now that Conference League's a thing. So it's one of those where I wouldn't really be surprised if we win that. Honestly, I think the entire month of August, it's not realistic, but it's a good start to the season, and it's one of those where we could come out with 9 points from the first 3 games. Is it going to be difficult? Yeah, but it's not one of those starts to the season where you play a top side straight away. We play Leeds United away, Brighton at home, and then Wolves away on the 30th of August. All winnable games, I think. We do like to mess things up, but the away records have been pretty good over the past few years. Hopefully the home record will be really good now that we're in the new stadium, and it's going to be a new atmosphere, a new challenge for the yeah, it's one of those where I think we could. There's a world where we can get 9 points out of the first 3 games. I think there's a world where you could do that in any, but it's one of those where I think this could be a real statement of intent for the club, a real thing, a real sign that we're on the up. Getting 9 points from the first 3 games doesn't automatically mean you're going to be a good team or anything, but it's a good sign, especially since September starts with 2 really difficult games. First being Aston Villa at home, who I'm not sure how Aston Villa are going to do. Of course, they don't have as much money as they'd like due to not qualifying for the Champions League after being unable to beat Man United on the last game of the season. I think they're going to have to sell some players, but it's one of those where at the same time, I'm not too sure. I still think it's winnable. I don't think beating Aston Villa is out of the question, but I think that's more likely to be something like a draw. And then Scotty Fleming here put, let me guess, Liverpool, December and March. we've actually got Liverpool really early this season, 20th of September at Anfield, and I thought you were right about the match then, to be honest. You were close, but 20th of September at Anfield, that's going to be a really difficult game. Liverpool have got the war chest out after, never spending anything, naturally building. They're going to spend like 300 million this transfer window. They didn't really spend anything last summer, so it don't surprise me. You've got to spend if they want to retain the Premier League. All these players they've brought in. And yeah, it's going to be really difficult. To be honest with you, I want to be confident. Don't really see a world where we get a win at Anfield. Maybe nick a draw, but I'm not really confident about that one. And then West Ham at home on the 27th of September. That's a very middle ground one as well. You're not really too sure what's going to go on there. If we're going to be, it depends on what West Ham do. West Ham are usually a team that will spend big in the transfer window, but there hasn't really been too many signs of that so far. Did finish below the league, lower in the league than us last season. I do think they're in a little bit of a worse spot than we are right now, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. So it's one of those where it's definitely a winnable game. I think it's a really good sign because out of the first 6 games, I'd say 4 of them are winnable, like realistically winnable. I think Aston Villa is winnable, but I'm leaning more towards a draw if I think about it. But I think there's 4 games there realistically we could win out of the first 6, which I don't think we will, but there's a chance of it, and I think that's a really positive sign because I think in the past few seasons now, I think there's been a lot less optimism going into the season than there is with this one, or hopefully will be with this one when we get to the end of the transfer window anyway, or at least when we play those first few Premier League games. Hopefully a few new signings have come through the door. I've had a summer to prepare with David Moyes, and then kind of gelled into the squad instead of us doing the thing that I think Everton have done way too much over last year, which is wait until the last week of the transfer window when you're already 2 or 3 games in the 2 or 3 games into the season. It's hard for a player to gel in. Then I think we need to get signings done early, or at least early enough where they can do play in pre-season with us, adapt to Moyes' system. I know it's not the most difficult system in the world or anything, but I'd much rather have a few players in the team who are new transfers and who have got a time to embed themselves into the squad instead of having to rush it all because they've signed when the Premier League's underway and everything's churning. But anyway, we'll move over to October. October the 4th, we play the FA Cup winners Crystal Palace at home. Again, winnable game. I'm not sure if the European fixtures will have started by then, because Crystal Palace are in the Europa League this season. And yeah, it's looking a bit weird for them. Liverpool's just been linked with Mark Gay. The Hounds are sniffing around Crystal Palace now. So it's one of those where I think, again, that's one where come the end of the transfer window, it could be a completely different story. If they're able to retain the players, I think that's a difficult game. I think Crystal Palace have shown that they're a really good side, in a position really where we want to be, where they've built themselves up the league and are now in a very stable position to build on. And I think that'll be. I think we'll be able to get a win there, because I think if there are European games going on in October, I think the focus is going to be on that, because naturally it's a European Cup. I can't remember the last time Crystal Palace were in Europe, so it's going to be a huge opportunity for them. And yeah, after that, I'm guessing there's an international break. So there's a 2-week break between the Crystal Palace game and our next game, which is away at Manchester City. Expect a loss. I don't know. It's Manchester City. I think it's one of those where just expect a loss, really. I can imagine there's going to be a lot of retooling going. Of course, lost Kevin De Bruyne to Napoli. It's one of those where we'll have to see where things go, but I'm not really too certain about us getting a win there. I think that's going to be a difficult one, of course it is at Man City. And then on the 25th of October, we play Tottenham Hotspur at home. I think that a lot of that depends on how they start the season, I think if they start well, that'll be difficult. Tottenham have got really good players, and I think it's just getting the right system around them and them not all getting crippled at the same time. I do still think it's winnable, though. They did still finish 17th in the league. I know there's a lot of circumstance behind that, but at the same time, I think we can beat Tottenham at home. To be honest with you, it's just one of those where they finished 17th. It's hard. We can't be saying we can't beat the team who just finished 17th in the league. And that gets us to the end of October. So I'm just going to look at some of the new comments here. Erwin Coleman says, hello. Do we beat Leeds? I think so. Yeah, I think we beat Leeds. I think it'll be difficult because they're back in the Premier League, and it'll be a big atmosphere. Elland Road always has a good atmosphere. I think with the stuff they've got going on with the 49ers, I think they will spend. I think they're one of those clubs where, because they are kind of embedded in the top flight of English football in a way, which is weird because of how long they were out of it. But, when people think of Leeds, you usually think of a top league side. I don't know why that took me so long to get to, but obviously maybe for some of the younger people who really only seen Leeds get to the Premier League under the Bielsa years, it might be different. But I think it'll be difficult, but I do think we get a win. I think we need to start the season really strong. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, I think there's a realistic chance of us getting 9 points out of 9. And I think we need to take advantage of that, because a good start to the season, I mean, you saw what it did in the Ancelotti season. A really good start, it catapulted us. So do I think we'll be able to do that? No, not so much. But I think if we're able to get a really good start, it could be a foundation towards, maybe even a top half finish, because if you can carry some momentum in the start of the season, it makes it much easier for you in the later half of the season. It's that simple, really, But moving on into November, on the 1st of November, we travel to Sunderland as they make their return to the Premier League. I'm very interested about Sunderland because I think they're going to have to spend a lot of money. They've got a lot of talented young players, but I don't think there's a lot of Premier League talent in that squad. There's a lot of potential Premier League talent, but is that the talent now? I don't think so. I like Sunderland. I hope they stay up, but even at their ground, even though I think it'll be rocking all season, I think the fans will be behind them. I really struggle to see Sunderland getting more than 30 points, to be honest with you. Again, I hope they do. I like Sunderland. But it's one of those where if there's not investment, and I know they've got a really rich owner who will spend, but I think they need more experience in the squad. They need a lot of Premier League experience in this squad. And I think I do think it being at their ground makes it a little bit more difficult. It's the same with Leeds. I think the thing is with the promoted sides this year, besides Burnley, really, I can't really comment on Burnley's atmosphere. I think it's quite good, but I can't really comment on it. I'm a big Burnley atmosphere enthusiast, but Sunderland and Leeds, well known for good atmospheres. Playing them early on in the season, playing them both early on in the season away as well. It could be a good litmus test for them. I think they're going to have to take advantage of their home games this season, and they'll probably look at us as a winnable game, which is understandable where we've been the past few years, but that's a perception we need to break. And if you want to break that perception, you need to be beating the teams around you. So it's one of those where all the teams around us and below us in the league, if where you want to finish 11th, we need to be consistently getting 4 or 6 points against the teams 12 to 20. If I know that's harder said than done, because at the end of the day, that's what 18 games, you multiply that, it's almost title winning form. But I think you have to go into these games in a perspective that you're going to win them because you're the better side. But atmosphere can do a lot. I think we beat Sunderland though. Then on the 8th of November, we play Fulham at home. I'm not too sure about this one. I'm going to have to think about this one a second. So we're going to go back to Scotty here. But I wonder if I'm going to have to sit up a little bit here when I do this. I wonder if Pickford's going to get a good welcome by the Sunderland fans. I think he will. I don't think there's a reason why he wouldn't. Sunderland fan, Sunderland lad, loves winding up Newcastle fans, which I think has kept him in Sunderland fans' good graces. I think he'll get a really good reception from them. And I think there's a weird camaraderie between Everton and Sunderland fans. So I can see it being a good reception for Pickford. But going into the Fulham game, it is at home. Yeah, I think we can beat Fulham at home. I don't see why not. I think Fulham are a spotty team where they can go on these really good runs of form where they'll win 4 out of 5 and then they'll lose 4 out of 5. They're really spotting. I think that's what cost them Europe. I do think they could be at this point, if the first manager of the season gets sacked by this point and Fulham aren't doing too well, I could see Marco Silva jumping the boat because he's well known to do that and jump to another team. But I think it'll be a bit difficult, but I do think we'll be able to get the win. Then on the 22nd, I'm guessing another international break, is away at Old Trafford. This is an interesting one. I'm not too sure what to think about this one because United look like they have some intent. Of course, they've signed Mateus Cunha. We're looking at signing Brian and Mbeumo, but it looks like Spurs might squeeze in and steal it now. I think a lot of Man United's thing is that it depends where they are at the end of the summer as well, because Man United should be a difficult game, but again, it's the same thing I said about Tottenham. Will it actually be a difficult game, look where they finished in the league, how disappointing they were. The players haven't really been able to adapt to Amorim's system, and the few that have, it hasn't been able to make enough of a difference to pump them up the league. I think they'll pump a lot of money in, which is funny because, the owner won't feed his staff, but a lot of people pay Casemiro for £100 a week. But, it's a different. I think Man United and Spurs are probably the two most difficult teams to predict us against this season, just because they should be higher in the league in your expectations, where they've been the past few years. They've had their down years, both clubs, but they're never this bad. And it's come consecutively. Of course, Spurs have Champions League football, so they're going to have to balance that. Man United have nothing. So it might be a thing where just because they've got to focus on the league, it'll be a bit easier for them. But I think it's winnable. I think it is winnable. But that's going off preconceived notions of this season. We'll have to see how they play next season. Is Amorim getting a full pre-season, going to be able to work out the kinks and work out the issues that he had with the team this year? But moving on from that again, I don't want to sit here and talk about one team for 20 minutes or so. Moving on to the next one, we've got Newcastle at home. I'm already starting to melt now, so I'm going to try not to waffle on as much about these. And the last game in November, Newcastle at home, 29th of November. I think it's winnable because it's at home. I'm saying that we just beat Newcastle away on the last day of the season in a game they had to win in their minds. Got a bit lucky in the end and didn't have to because Aston Villa bottled it. But I think that proves that it's winnable a lot, and their transfer situation seems to be a bit weird right now as well, along with the fact that where our squad's probably going to improve. I don't want to say every game's winnable because I think it makes me sound stupid and deluded, but I think we've got a really good start to the season, to be honest. I think there's a few difficult games sprinkled in there, but I think it's one of those things where I feel like the hard games are. It's weird because I feel like the hard games are like clumped in two. So September it's Villa, Liverpool, or what you'd expect to be two difficult games anyway. October it's City and Spurs. In November it's United and Newcastle. Even in December it's Chelsea, Arsenal. But getting on to December, which is usually our let's put you against every good team in the league month. What's that? You play 6 games in December. You're going to play all of the top 6 is usually what it feels like. But a little bit calmer in December. First game December. Actually, before I do that, let's have a look at Blue Badger comments. Mackems will be throwing a parade to welcome Pickford back. And if we go on a losing streak at Bramley Moore, I'll be scared. Yeah, I will be too, because I think the players really need to make an impression at the new ground. If their players, and specifically want us to believe that they're the players who can push us up the league, they need to be performing at home at a new stadium, because the stadium, in a weird way, is a signal of our ambition. So you need these players to go. Sorry, I've got really itchy nose for some reason. You need these players to go into this new stadium, this showcase of ambition, and then they need to be ambitious. They need to play ambitious. They need to show that they can be players for a top half Premier League side, maybe pushing for Conference League side. I know that feels a bit. I can imagine for some fans that feels a bit low. I'm sorry, my nose is really itchy. I think it's hay fever. But yeah, it's one of those where we have to have a good start to the season at home. It's that simple. If I look at our first 5 home games, it's Brighton, Aston Villa, West Ham, Crystal Palace, and Spurs. Realistically, well, not realistically, but what I mean is that there is a world where we can win all 5 of those games. It's not like we're playing 5 juggernauts there, that we're playing 5 teams that are Villa better than us, but the rest of them, Brighton probably better than us. The rest of them, though, Crystal Palace probably are won a trophy. Sorry, I'm dropping things everywhere now. Crystal Palace probably are as well, but again, it's one of those where I'm trying to, in my head when I picture that we've made the signings we need to make. And where can we go if we make the signings we need to make, while also trying to look at it objectively? I know we're an Everton fan channel, but again, I'm trying not to put the goggles on and say we're going to win the league, even though I want to, because it'd be fun. But yeah, but I think the first 5 home games are really lenient for us. I don't really think we go into a difficult stretch of home games until March, where we play Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City back to back to back. Besides that, I don't really think there's a stretch that's ridiculously difficult. I think our home games are well spaced out in a sense where it's not like 4 good teams on the bounce, for example. I feel like it's really nicely spread out for once, which is nice. But anyway, getting back onto December because I don't want to be here forever. First game, Bournemouth away, going to be difficult, good side, but it looks like they're selling their entire squad. Of course, they lost Hoyson. There's a rumour about Zabanyi going now to PSG. They've just lost Kirkes to Liverpool. They're getting a lot of money, but replacing the talent's always a problem. And it's one of those things where it can kill a team like Bournemouth. It can really kill a team like Bournemouth, especially if they have a bad start to the season. I think they've got a fantastic manager. I don't think they'll be in the worry of the drop or anything like that because I think they will replace well. But I think it's a winnable game. Not as much as some of the other games because I think Bournemouth will still be good next season, but I'm not like dreading Bournemouth away. Then it's Nottingham Forest at home, which I'm oddly confident about. Not to like annoy any Forest fans or anything. I don't think they're going to be as good next season. I think they're going to finish like 11th, 12th maybe. I think European football is going to really take a toll on them. I think they might have a decent run in Europe, might spend a bit of money, but it's one of those where I'm not like, again, I don't feel like we're playing a top 6 side or a top 7 side. You know what I mean? I feel like we're playing more mid-table side there, so quietly optimistic. Then it's Chelsea away. I can see Chelsea being really good next season, to be honest, if Cole Palmer can find his stride, so I'm not too confident about that. Then Arsenal at home. We always do quite well against Arsenal, so I don't know. I feel like we do anyway. We might not, but I don't know. I always feel like we do all right against Arsenal, but that one, less so, probably lose that one. And then we play, I've just noticed something like that. And then we play Burnley away on the 27th. Probably should win that at Turf Moor. I can't see Burnley being very good next season, to be honest. And then on the 30th of November, we go back to Nottingham Forest, only 3 weeks after playing them the first time, go to City Ground. That's where I think Forest might be able to nab a win against us. Forest seem to always do well at the City Ground. But then moving on into January, the 3rd of January, we play Brentford at home. Brentford's an interesting one. Of course, Thomas Frank's on Spurs. I don't know if Brentford have announced the manager or who's been linked yet, but I think we have to see how they get on. Brentford always usually do well with the recruitment, even with managers. So I don't expect them to drop off really next season. I think some people are saying stuff about they might get relegated, but they said that under Tony. I do think they said that when Tony left. I do think Thomas Frank's a big part of that, but we'll have to see how things play out. I think that we can beat Brentford, though. Same with Wolves on the 7th. We can beat Wolves. Already mentioned Wolves a little bit earlier, so we can just from there. And then on the 17th of January, we play Aston Villa at Villa Park. Can't see us winning that one, to be honest. I do think Villa will be good next season, and I think the lighter European schedule in terms of it being Europa League, so it'll be a little bit easier. It's going to help them in the league next season. Move on to the 24th. That's where we play Leeds at home. Should be winning that newly promoted side. The gaps between the Premier League sides and the newly promoted sides now, fortunately kind of for us because we were in the position as one of those teams where our newly promoted side could have nicked our spot. But it's annoying to see that it feels like there's no real hope for promoted teams to stay up now and they're just having to rely on parachute payments, maybe build a year in the Championship, etc. But should be beating Leeds at the new stadium. And then on the 31st of January, we play Brighton away. That'll be a difficult one. Again, I see Brighton being pretty good next season if they don't get absolutely raided like they seem to every season, even though, again, they always seem to bounce back. So we'll have to see about that one. Moving on to February, on the 7th of February, we play Fulham away. Again, we always do well against Fulham, I feel like, as well. I think Fulham's a team we always seem to do all right against as well. I think we beat them at Craven Cottage this season. It's hardly an atmosphere there, to be honest with you. We can win that game. And then on the 11th of February, we play Bournemouth at home. Again, I think Bournemouth are going to be good next season, but there's no real reason if we want to be in this category with these clubs that are like low, high bottom half, so 11th, 12th, and then low mid-table to low top half, 8th, 9th, 10th. I think we should be saying we can beat these teams. This is me trying to be optimistic that we'll actually sign the players we need. if I was looking at it from the squad we have now, it'd be a much different point of view. If I'm going to be honest with you, I'd be much less confident about it than I am. But again, I think it's winnable. 21st of February, Man United at home. Same thing I said. It could be difficult if the Amorim system clicks. We've seen it at Sporting, what it can do. Look what he did to Man City. If it clicks, they could be a really good team next season. And again, I feel like there's a few teams in the league now but there's a little bit of uncertainty around because of maybe changes in managers, losing a lot of their players. That's why I think it's hard to predict and to react to this early. I think it's much easier to react a little bit later on in the transfer window when we've got a gauge of what everyone's doing, what everyone's plans are. But looking at it from where Man United look right now, it's a winnable game. And then Newcastle away on the 28th of February. We did just beat them away, so logic dictates that with a better squad, it looks like they're not going to make a ton of improvements. It's possible. Cautious, bit pessimistic about that one, to be honest with you. I don't really see us winning that one. Start off March. On the 4th of March, we play Burnley at home. Winnable, newly promoted. I think they're going to finish rock bottom. It's simple as that, really. Them or Sunderland, I'm not too sure, actually. And then on the 14th of March, we play Arsenal away. And I've just noticed they've just done the December thing, but swapped. On the 13th and 20th of December, it's Chelsea, then Arsenal. Then on the 14th and 21st of March, it's Arsenal, then Chelsea. But anyway, 14th of March, Arsenal away. Arsenal are going to be desperate to get that league title. Think they're going to get a striker in. Don't see us winning that one. 21st of March, Chelsea at home. Said they're going to be a good side. But again, I'm trying to be cautiously optimistic that our home form is going to be really good this season. So in my head, it's telling me we could squeak a result, maybe a draw. Not pushing a win, but maybe a draw. Moving on to April, Brentford away. Again, depends where Brentford are, where the manager situation is. Do they go into complete shambles? After losing number of best players, do some players decide that they want to go? Now that Frank is gone, does he take a few players from Brentford with him at Spurs? We'll have to see. But it should be winnable. Then 18th of April is the first Merseyside derby at the new stadium. Liverpool at home. Probably going to be a draw if I think about it. But, getting the first Merseyside derby win at the new ground against a new look, galactical Liverpool team where they spent 300 mil would be one of the best feelings on planet Earth. Hopefully they hadn't already won the league by then at that point. And then the last game of April, on the 25th of April, we play West Ham away. Again, this is what I mean. West Ham are a situation where they could have a completely new manager, a complete new lease of life, and soaring up the league because they've sacked Graham Potter and realised it's not going to work. Or they could be 17th, 3 points off the drop if the newly promoted teams can keep up this year. So it's a difficult one. Feels like a draw to me. So, yeah. And then the last month of the season, on the 2nd of May, we play Manchester City at home. Probably not going to win that. Want to be optimistic because it's the new stadium. Not really going to win that, are we? 9th of May, we play Crystal Palace away. I think a lot of this depends how good Crystal Palace do in Europe. They're always quite good at Selhurst Park. If they're out of Europe at this point, probably beat us, maybe nick a draw. On the 17th of May, we play Sunderland at home. Again, should be beating them newly promoted side. So it's one of those where, again, we should be beating all the newly promoted sides twice in an ideal world. So we will have to see where that goes. But again, I'm not really too sure, but we should be beating them. And then the last game of the season on the 24th of May, it's away at Tottenham Hotspur. Probably lose that. I think they're going to be good under Thomas Frank. Again, I've gone through this thing when I've mentioned Tottenham, said I'm not sure. We'll have to see how things go, but I think they'll be good under him. I think he's a good manager. I think he'll help sort out the balancing issues they've had with keeping the squad fit, with rotating the squad when you need to, when not, overworking your players. I think he'll do really well with that. And yeah, that is every game of the Premier League season for the 2025-26 season. It's quite a good fixture list, if I'm honest. I think it doesn't really feel like there's any congestion of really good teams like we seem to get every December. The most difficult stretch of the season, maybe the March to April, where it's Arsenal, Chelsea, Brentford, Liverpool. Yeah, Arsenal, Brentford, Chelsea. Arsenal, Chelsea, Brentford, Liverpool, West Ham, Man City is probably the most difficult we've got. I don't think it's necessarily. Yeah, I weirdly don't think this season has a killer run. I mean, if Bournemouth and Forest play up to how they've played this season, December might be torture again because it's Bournemouth away, Forest at home, Chelsea away, Arsenal at home, get a break in with Burnley away, and then Forest away. But I think that little stretch in March is going to be really important to us because if we can pick up some points there, there may be some promise coming towards the end of the season. But that is where I'm going to wrap things up and go outside and melt in the sun because I am horrendously warm right now. I should probably plug the fan in, but didn't want you lot to hear that in the video in the background. If you did enjoy this video or slash stream, please make sure to, let me get this up, please make sure to drop a like. Follow us all on Twitter at Everton Newsfeed and follow myself on Twitter at Callum Brannan3. And I will see you all for the next video and or live stream that I am on. Goodbye, everyone.